Shall we get this party started?
You got it.
All right. So I think that it was our hope to have Dr. Mary Mason on, but I think that there's some technical issues this morning. For those of you who don't know, I'm Kat Ogle. I'm your panel moderator today, and I am an emergency physician at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And I'm very excited to share the morning with you and to chat with these amazing, established ladies. So I would love to have you guys introduce yourselves. Maybe we'll start with Dr. Geeta Nayar. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did. Thanks, Kat. Good morning, everybody. So wonderful to be with you guys this Saturday. If you're like me, you're balancing your household with the conference and with life in general for a good bit now. So first, just want to say thank you to Kat. Thank you to Archana. Thank you guys so much for the invitation and for having us on. It would have been lovely to do it in person, but maybe that'll be, next time around. My background, I'm a rheumatologist trained at GW, actually with Archana. I built my career really in health tech. I'm the chief medical officer for Greenway Health, a EHR company, and I know you guys all hate your EHR. My job is to make it suck less. I still practice part-time. I'm based in Miami, and so I'm a voluntary faculty at University of Miami, and I have an 8-year-old daughter who gives me a run for my money every day. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My son is also 8, so I feel you. Tons of energy. Dr. Kimberly Brown, please share with us who you are and where you're coming from.
So my name is Dr. Kimberly Brown. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but now I'm living in Memphis, Tennessee, where I did my emergency medicine training here as a part of the first class of emergency medicine residents at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center here. So now I practice in the community, and I've done a bunch of other random things since I've graduated from residency too. So happy to be on here. I'm trying to get back on a normal person's schedule. So if my voice is a little bit raspy, I'm used to kind of sleeping in a little bit this last week since I've been off. So I'm glad to be here this morning.
We are so happy to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And finally, our illustrious leader, the hostess with the mostest, Dr. Amber Robbins.
Hi, good morning. And by the way, Dr. Brown is understating herself, but we'll get into that, I'm sure, later on. But anyway, I'm Dr. Amber. I'm one of the co-founders for Women in White Coats. And I'm also, my day job is being a family doctor here in DC. I have done a lot of interesting things because they give me a lot of energy. So I have done media. I did my fellowship at Georgetown with PBS NewsHour. Love publishing books, love really elevating other people so that they can see their greatness. So I'm so excited to be a part of the panel, and back to Kat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I forgot to talk about the name of the panel today, but really we are talking about thinking outside the box of clinical medicine. And we're certainly happy to take questions from the audience. Just put them in the chat box and I'll be moderating that. But I want to start with a question. When did you realize that you, as a doctor, think outside the box of clinical medicine? So I'd love to start with Dr. Nayar.
Sure. I think for me, I come from a medical family. And so going into medicine was really just what I grew up with. So I would say that being a doc was just always something, it just really is truly what I always wanted to be. As far as thinking outside of the box, when you come from a medical family, I think you just appreciate the dysfunction much earlier in your career than, because I'm surrounded by people in my family that's like, oh, that administrator or the payer or just, all the different stakeholders that we all know all too well, right? Make healthcare complicated. So for me, it was really early. It was really early. I did an MBA during my fellowship. Suicide mission, don't recommend it, but it's really very much paid for when you're a fellow, which is kind of why I did it that way. So really early, I would just say really early. I was always looking to talk to people who had MD JDs, MD MPHs, MD MPAs. Like I wasn't sure exactly what outside of the box I wanted to do. So a lot of my journey was exploring and talking to folks. And then I landed in health tech more by happenstance than anything else. But it was really just surrounding myself with people and trying to understand the landscape, because I always felt like one-on-one patient care was wonderful and I enjoy it, but I really wanted to make an impact. So for me, it was about being able to make like a impact that could scale across the industry.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, and how smart to get it paid for, right? By
The
your
women have to
fellowship.
think about that stuff. It's not fun
Yes.
to have debt and loans. So yeah, you gotta be smart.
Dr. Mason, we're so happy to see you.
Let's see. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Very
Yeah.
good. Thank you. I apologize. I think I am the black cloud of IT. So thank you so much for
No problem. We're so
having me
happy
today.
that you're here. Please, Dr. Mason, we've already done introductions, but I would love to have you give yourself a brief introduction for our participants.
Sure. So I'm Mary Mason. I'm an internist. I'm also a mother of three. So I have a sophomore in college, a sophomore in high school, and a third grader. So I get the whole spectrum. And I have had, I got my MBA back in when I was still doing my residency. And so I've been in the corporate world. And then I've also most recently been working with my company, Little Medical School, which runs many medical schools, nursing, pharmacy, all sorts of health careers for kids, and franchised it in 2015. And we're about 60 locations right now.
That's so fantastic. I love the idea of creating pipelines for folks that are interested in health careers. That's awesome. So we had actually just started with our first question, which is, when did you realize that you thought outside of the clinical box of medicine? So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
For me? Yes. Okay. I'm from a medical family as well. And, my mother and father are both physicians. My siblings are. And being the youngest, it was one of those things that it's what I knew. And so I always knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I knew I wanted to do something else. And I think doing the MBA gave me an opportunity to really look outside the box and really think differently, because I think in medicine, we're so trained to follow clinical protocols, and you don't want to get too creative there. That's when you get into trouble, whereas medicine really does let you think outside. And I think there's so many opportunities. And I think it was also a mentor telling me it's okay not to see patients. And that's because some people feel guilty that they don't get to do that. And I think there's so many other ways that we can positively contribute to society and our communities using our medical degrees. And so I think once you get that go ahead, that's when I think you're really allowed to really look and see all the opportunities.
Awesome. Yeah, don't harbor any guilt for doing what you're passionate about.
Absolutely not.
Many different ways to be a doctor, right? Dr. Brown, what about you? When did you start thinking outside the box? Dr. Brown, are you frozen? I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I might have to switch sceneries because I think I'm too far away from my router. So I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry. Am I answering the same question as everyone else is?
Yeah, same question. When did you start thinking outside the box of clinical medicine?
So I will kind of say maybe more so towards the end of residency, but the idea wasn't too far away from me the whole time I've been pursuing medicine. So I did not come from a medical family. I'm the first doctor in my family. We have a couple of nurse practitioners, but no one is a physician in my family. So growing up in a single parent household, my mom was a hustler. And I do say a hustler, like she would have different jobs doing different things. And I feel like she could always find a way to create some sort of an opportunity to make money or do something. So fast forward until all the way when I'm starting residency, and I was sitting down with one of my mentors, and he kept asking me very early, what did I want to do like after residency? Like, because it was at the beginning of my second year, and he's like, okay, so what are you gonna do when you finish? I'm like, well, I just got out of intern year, so I don't know. I'm just starting to figure out this whole doctor thing. But he was very much instrumental in influencing some of the things that I thought I could do as a doctor. His name is Dr. Mark Brady. He's been known for in the emergency medicine community for 24/7, 365. That emergency medicine documentary, kind of documenting our history. And he was working on some other documentaries. He had his own film production company where he wanted to tell medical stories. And I just thought that was so cool that he could do that. So he was the kind of the first one to kind of start jogging my mind and making me to realize that maybe I don't have to just go to fellowship or just see patients or what have you. So long story short, I was this close to doing a neurocritical care fellowship here in Memphis, but I decided to turn it down at the last minute. And when I graduated from residency, it's like, okay, so you're a doctor, you've been working all these years to do that. So you've checked that box off in life. So what else are you gonna do? Like, what else is on the list of things that you want to accomplish? So it's been something that's kind of been a slow roll. Like I knew that I could side hustle watching my mom. And then I really started thinking about it in medicine, working with my mentor. And then it kind of just blossomed from there.
What a beautiful story. I mean, to be the first doctor in your family, congratulations. That's an amazing feat. And I'm sure you're so very proud of yourself. And, you know, it sounds so awesome to have not only your mom as a role model, as a hustler, as you said, but also to have really a solid mentor that sort of inspires you, a he for she, as we would call him. So that's awesome. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
definitely.
Dr. Robbins, tell us, when did you start thinking outside the box?
I was, we started with Born This Way. So I would say for a while, what it really stuck out to me though, when it really stuck out to me was actually my second year in medical school. And it was more so because my classmates were noticing that I was asking like random questions in medicine. Like, oh, why is it that we have a slide deck that doesn't show all ethnicities? Why is it that we don't have, you know, this or that? And I kept on asking those questions. And so eventually that led to me realizing that I always ask questions and then try to find a solution for them. So then over time that led to, oh, that's what an entrepreneur does. And also we had a great experience. So I don't know if you all use this, but Visual DX. Have you ever heard of Visual DX before? A lot of us use it when we see patients to try to help us narrow down our differential for dermatological diseases. So the guy from Visual DX, one of the creators, actually came to present to my medical school class while I was a medical student there. And he told us about the process of going from, you know, having this question, knowing that there could be a way to give a solution. And I thought that was so amazing. I haven't done anything like that yet, but I just thought that was so amazing that he took the information that he knew and he was able to create something that's been helpful to me ever since I found out about it. And then later on, I went into residency. I still had all these questions. And then I started to bump into people. And I didn't think this would be an MBA thing. I didn't know I didn't think all of us would have that in common. And even if we don't, I know three of us have it. But I got my MBA not necessarily because, oh, that's what I thought I would need to do. It was more so of mentoring as well for me to get that. And I also got mine in residency. And so that piqued my interest even more and made me realize that, oh yeah, I kind of do like doing certain things like that. And then on the media side of things, a lot of mentoring, just like Dr. Brown was saying, mentoring is super important with that because a mentor tapped me and said, oh, I think you would be good on camera. And I'm like, first of all, I'm a resident and I'm tired as hell. And I don't feel like doing anything other than eat, sleep, go to work. And so she influenced me to start doing TV. At that time, I was in Rochester. And so I was on the local news. And then my program director was like, oh, you're so good at that. Let's see if you can do even more. And I'm like, okay, so how are we going to do this? And so he actually found the information for me to do rotation at ABC News in New York. And so I was a part of the medical unit there. And then I was like, oh, I like this. I have a knack for it, but I really don't know what to do with this within my career. And so thankfully, Dr. Besser, who isn't on ABC anymore, I miss him. I love what they have now, but Dr. Besser is so sweet. He's like a program director at heart. He was actually a program director in pediatrics long time ago. And so he really treated us like a program director at ABC. While he got on the news, talked about different things, did national, local, wrote, all those type of things. And so I talked with him as well as others in the medical unit, and then they convinced me to then go and apply for fellowship at Georgetown. So outside of that, so I just basically kind of fell into a lot of stuff. And I find that whenever it's your passion, it kind of finds you. And so that's how I realized, that clinical medicine is just a part of what I do, but it isn't everything that I do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing it. It really sounds like serendipity is what spoke to you in your heart, and you've really found your way. So thank you so much for sharing. We do have some prepared questions, but we also have some awesome questions coming from the audience. So I just wanted to throw this one out there. Dr. Nayar, how did you get into the role of Chief Medical Officer? As in, what are the key steps? And is there a roadmap or certain prerequisites?
So there's definitely no roadmap. I think we as physicians are so used to the roadmap. I think whenever you do anything outside of medicine, there is no roadmap. I mean, hearing Dr. Robbins speak, you can see that there was no roadmap, right? I think that probably all of us are at a stage in our career where we realize that. I don't even know how to answer that question. I will tell you that I remember being really young in my first non-clinical job, and they made me a vice president. I was underpaid, overworked, the whole thing. It felt like residency again. I actually thought about going back to residency. So I'm like, I'm actually making less than I was before. And I did all this education. And so one of the things I fought for, since I couldn't get compensated, they basically told me, it's great that you're a doc, but we don't see patients here. So we can't compensate you for that. Like, that's just, we're not going to be able to compensate you for that. And you have no business skills. So they kind of took a chance on me, if you will. And I appreciate that. But I basically fought for a title change. And I said, I think I'm your chief medical officer. I'm not your VP, because everyone else here was a VP. Everyone else, I sort of looked at my peer group and I said, this just doesn't work for me. This isn't going to help me. And I had no clue. There was no roadmap. But essentially I fought for that title, and I made it again about the business as opposed to myself. And then once I became a chief medical officer, I never took anything less, to be really frank. And then of course it was about building my experience. It was about having this niche sort of specialty in business and tech, and being able to articulate as a doc, which is hard, right? A lot of docs are either really good at the science or good at presenting. Very few are good at both. In technology, there are docs that are really good at geeking out in the engineering space, and like, you never want to put them in front of an audience, but you want them to be in the basement working on stuff because they're so good at it. I like to do both. So I like to actually geek out with the engineers in the basement and then go upstairs and talk about it and sell it to the world. One, because I'm a geek, and two, because it's much easier to articulate it when I actually understand it and build it. So it was that, I would say it's that niche that continues to make me successful as a CMO and to be seen as a CMO. I'll also say that your own personal branding, what you do on social media, being thoughtful about things like that, whatever you write, always keeping in mind your credibility is really important, because no matter what any of us do, being a physician is going to be core to that. So never selling yourself cheap snake oil, vitamins, whatever it might be. I think you have to just really do some soul searching on that. But I think I've always towed the line of, I'm a doc, I'm not selling pharmaceuticals, I'm not selling, right? I'm doing solid work, and that's what I want to be, that's what I want to be seen as and respected as, if that makes sense. So sorry, that was long-winded, but truly there was definitely no roadmap. Still no roadmap.
I think that that seems to be pretty common, for people's paths, that there is no roadmap. But, I really appreciate that you shared that you found a way to articulate your value to the people that were employing you, and that you didn't take less. You're like, this is how it's going to be. This is what I deserve. And, kudos to you for that. Second question from our audience is for everybody, and I would love to start with Dr. Brown. How do you balance clinical practice with your work outside of clinical practice? Do you choose one over the other?
I guess it's a little bit easier for me because I am single and I don't have any children right now. So I don't have to juggle as much of taking kids and taking care of someone else and kind of balancing everything. So I'm pretty lucky for now, for that standpoint, that I have a lot of time to myself. And luckily, emergency medicine, we're shift work. So usually when I'm not at work, I'm just not at work. There's nothing to do. I'm not charting. I'm pretty much able to compartmentalize, work at work or clinical work at work. And kind of my free time is my own personal free time. But yet and still, I'm still a procrastinator. And I've been a procrastinator my whole life. I'm coming out to everybody as a procrastinator. So I have to make sure that I am scheduling things for time for myself, putting deadlines on the calendar when I want to get things done, and just trying to schedule things out as much as in advance as possible. If I put it on the calendar, then I usually can't procrastinate about it. I have to make little baby steps moving towards that. So being a little bit more thoughtful about my off time and making sure that I am delegating the time that things need to make things happen is huge for me. And that's how I kind of juggle things.
I live and die by my Google Calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it's not happening.
Yes,
And that
or my Erin
includes,
Condren. I have a written planner sometimes too. So yeah, if it's not on my Google Calendar or written down in my planner, it never happens, and it's not
yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah, and I think that, you also bring a really important point up about when you're working on a project, sort of breaking it up into baby steps. That task management and that project management is such an important piece when you're a leader and when you're doing such incredible and dynamic things. So thank you so much. Dr. Mason, please tell us how you balance it all.
There we go. I think scheduling is so important, but the other thing too that I've found over the years is that I think often women are scared to ask for what they need to be successful, and I've seen that in the corporate world, but even now that I'm moving more into my own business and really taking control of that. You can make it all work. And I think especially today with, technology and honestly, doing things on Zoom and being at home, sometimes I almost feel like you're more productive because we're all really good multitaskers. But I do think that it is okay to be able to tell your employer or tell the business you're working with, this is what I need. And, honestly, if it, I know personally for me, having a meeting not starting before 8:15 or 8:30, because if I can take my little one to school, it sets the tone for the day, and it's much easier for me, and I feel less guilty, and I feel, then I can really concentrate on my work. And I've had so many, physician colleagues say, oh my gosh, I can't do that. That will make me look weak if I ask for that. And that's not true at all. So I think it's really being empowered and figuring out this is what I need to do. But then of course you've got to follow through and do it, and then also do 110% and go beyond. And I think if you do that, you really can make it all work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Dr. Robbins, how do you balance your clinical work and your outside of clinical work?
Yeah, that is starting to be out. I want to be honest, that's starting to become an issue. Trying to figure that out, because being full-time family medicine and trying to also be responsive with patients, my boss, and then also to have a lot of other projects outside of medicine going on, it can be a lot. So for me, I've actually also have had a coach to kind of help me figure out how to best do that and how to balance my lifestyle and all of the things that I love to do that are work. It just depends on if it's work that I like to do or work that I don't like to do. So for me, I'm actually considering going part-time. And so that would allow me to have more time to be able to balance things, to help even women in white coats grow, my doing more media, all those type of things that I'm also passionate about, as well as seeing patients. Because I think for me, if I have a balance of both of those things, and that gets me to my happy place. But if one of them is lacking, then I start getting like stir crazy, like COVID stir crazy. So I'm working on that. But right now what I do is I wake up early. I wake up at like 5:30, 5 o'clock every morning, and I try to do some work before work, outside of my clinical work. So non-clinical work before I even go to work. And then I go to work from 8 to 5, and I'm out by 5. Everybody knows that who works with me. I am out by 5. If you keep me at 5:01, we have a problem. So I try to wrap up at 5. And then I come home, and then I start back on my non-clinical work. I still go to bed at 10:30. I still am able to do fun things. I section off time, but it's all about, I have this goal. I know I need these certain benchmarks to meet it. And then I just go ahead and, meet those marks and then move on to the next thing. But yeah, the balance is hard. And especially if you're trying to incorporate more people in your life. For me, I'm having a life transition where I'm about to get married. So that was also something that came in part of me trying to figure out, okay, I know I'm already busy. So what can I do to take something off my plate? So part-time it is. So it changes depending on where you are in your life.
Well, it's wonderful that you can sort of toe that line and figure out when it is that you need to let something go and, redirect your energy to the things that you're passionate about. And I also love that you're very clear about your boundaries. I think that that's something we could take a note on. So there's a couple more questions from the audience that I wanted to pull out. So Dr. Brown, the folks want to hear all about your out of the box activities. Can you tell us what you're doing with your time?
Yeah, I was sitting here listening to everybody else. I'm like, I never really actually said what I did. It was like kind of this mystery type of deal. Okay, so I will say this. I've done several different things, and it's been 2019 was a great year for me. So I told you guys that basically I kind of came to this thought after I finished residency, which was 2018, like, what am I going to do? So I actually started working with a media coach, which so happens to be Dr. Amber Robbins. When I first finished residency, and I kind of told her some of these things, like, I just feel like I want to, I don't know, I just need something else to do. So towards the end of residency, I actually got an opportunity to be on a local news. They interviewed me for something, I don't even remember what it was. And I really enjoyed doing that. So I started to realize, like, well, maybe I should polish up my speaking skills. So I started working with Amber as a media coach, and she kind of started launching me, like, as far as, okay, let's get a website together. Why don't you start writing, pitching yourself to local news? And it kind of sped up after that. So right when I was finishing residency as well, my brother asked me, do you want to be on TV with me? I'm like, yeah, I want to be on TV with you. Long story short, we were on House Hunters together. Then last year, I wrote my first book on my own. It's called It's an Emergency, Understanding the What, How, and Why of Your ER Visit. And that's a book I started kind of bouncing off with Amber, because I realized that lots of times when people come into the emergency department, they're very scared, nervous. It's their worst day of their life. And I think because there's so much unknown about what's happening to them and then what's happening behind the scenes, the doctor kind of pops in and pops out. The nurse pops in, pops out, and then you're just kind of sitting there waiting for something to happen. So I figured that if, as me as a physician, could write a letter or write a book really quick and simple for patients to read, then that would be easy for them to kind of understand what we do behind the scenes to help them. So I wrote and launched that book. Then I got a call from a friend that asked me if I was interested in filming untold stories of the ER. So what I didn't say was I went to Ross University School of Medicine, which when I was there, it was located in Dominica, but now it's in Barbados. And so when I was on the island as a medical student, I used to watch Untold Stories of the ER on Saturday night because I knew I wanted to be ER doctor. And I would try to guess like what was going on with the patients, like, you know, depending on whatever we had learned. And I usually would get it right. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool that this patient actually had that. And I was like, man, I want to be on that show one day. I want to be on that show. And sure enough, I ended up meeting a couple of people who were on the show, and they say, hey, they're casting again. Do you wanna pitch? And so I pitched a couple of stories, and they took the second story and they flew me to Toronto, Canada. It made me feel like a movie star, and that was really fun. So I was on Untold Stories of the ER last year. And so lots of TV, lots of TV that I did last year. So starting this year, I ended up meeting Dr. Nina Loom, who is also one of the original authors of the Chronicles of Women in White Coats, when I went to the conference last year, and found out that we both went to medical school in the Caribbean. And we decided to get together and write a book together called Still MD, which is basically for people who are considering going to international medical schools or Caribbean schools, and kind of documenting our journey and giving advice along the way. A lot of times we've learned that students that go to Caribbean medical schools or international medical schools aren't as supported and don't have the mentorship and leadership and guidance that they need. So we decided to kind of stand up and be that voice, and Dr. Nina is already coaching IMGs. And so I kind of just jumped on her bandwagon and told my story from a US student, because she is from Cameroon originally. So that's the second book that I wrote. So 2 books, TV, and then with COVID-19 right now, there's been a lot of local news that's been reaching out to me to speak on air about what's been going on. So that's kind of what I have done outside of the box. So written a couple of books, been on TV a few times, and really I have some other things that I'm thinking about doing in the background as well. So that has been my real passion these last few months, 2 years outside of residency since 2018.
That's amazing. And that to tell you, there's a bunch of comments over here about how understated you are. Stop selling yourself short.
There's like 31 comments. Holy God.
We don't want the Cliff's Notes version. We want the full version.
Yeah, this is so not cool, Dr. Brown. You're like holding back on a women in white coat panel. You're the opposite of what we're supposed to do. You're like the poster child. You're amazing.
Well, no, I'm in awe of each of you guys, because I was gonna say the next thing that I'm really tackling is I would love to. Well, I already do some telemedicine work on the side, but I am seeing, of course, with COVID-19. I hate to say the word, but COVID-19, there's been so much more foray into telemedicine, and so what that looks like for underserved communities of color, immigrant communities who already have no access or low access to physicians, what a telemedicine space could look like for them. So I say that because I'm super impressed by you guys. Geeta, that's amazing that you are a CMO and thinking outside the box. And Dr. Mason, I love the Midi Medical School idea. Since living here in Memphis, there's so many students who just don't have access because of the school system or whatever. So it will be amazing to see what a Midi Medical School here in Memphis would do. So I'm amazed by you guys. I'm just like, well, I have to show up on TV.
You know what? We actually have one there that's based out of South Haven, Mississippi. Okay. And it's really funny because even, that concept, when I started in residency, because I was trying to figure out community service, and I was a chief resident at WashU in St. Louis, and I had all these residents who were so burned out, and so I was trying to connect them with the community. And honestly, it was just this very simple idea of doing role playing and doing storyboarding, and giving kids white coats and stethoscopes, and having them take the little medical school oath, which was like like the Hippocratic Oath, and getting a diploma. And I just played around with it for a long time until someone just, in 2010 said, you know what? No one else is doing this. And so, and then I realized there was people all over the country, a lot of physicians. We have several physicians who are now franchise owners, nurses. We have a lot of education, small business owners who have come in. And we basically have now probably over 450 hours of curriculum. We do after school programs, summer camps, birthday parties, Girl Scouts, all sorts of things. But the coolest thing that has happened is I have a lot of physicians who are, kind of reaching that burnout stage where they want to still see patients once a week or twice a week, but they also want to go and teach. And also we have a lot of instructors that are pre-med or, people in college and grad school. So then it also gives you the opportunity to become a mentor as well to these instructors. So it's this really great win-win. And then I take the profits and put it in a foundation that's named after my mother, who was a pediatrician who inspired this all. And we then go into underserved communities and do this, because I think if you can get to kids young in grade school and tell them you can do this, and you inspire them, it really can change a lot, especially in these underserved communities. A lot of kids are just told you can't do it. And so we're all about that. And I think especially when you have a physician in charge of the local franchise, it just gives you an opportunity to become such a role model, and it's so rewarding. And so that's what I love about it. And I still teach. I love to go teach. I think it's the best thing ever. And we've been doing online classes now nationally because of the COVID crisis, and it works that way too. And so, it's just been really, I think, something I never thought would get as big as it has, but it's really been great to meet so many other women physicians who have the same mission.
That is so awesome. And you actually addressed one of the questions that was in the Q&A. As folks wanted to know how, you're managing these mini medical schools and who is involved in being a franchisee. So if someone wanted to do that, would they just contact you?
Yeah, if you go on our website, we have lots of information. And, I think the scariest thing about business, especially when, because most physicians are employed, so you've never really been in a business situation. So what I did is I took all this information and all these resources and we put them together so somebody could open up their own business, using all of our resources and tools. And we've made it very simple. And we do, a 3-day training. And it's, like I said, it's a way to really do something with your medical degree. And to really, think of you're influencing the next generation of physicians and nurses and healthcare heroes, which, is really very rewarding.
That's awesome. Everybody's asking for the website. So if you don't mind typing it in.
littlemedicalschool.com. And we have lots of areas still open. It's been very interesting. We've had a lot of international, and it's a lot we've been growing there, but we still have a lot of areas open in the US. And I'd love when women physicians, come in and do this, because they're passionate, and, it gives them an opportunity to be a great role model in their local community.
Sorry, can I just make a comment? I think that not to derail this to talk about the pandemic, I know we're all exhausted from talking about it, but, it's so important that this has just shown the frailty of the healthcare infrastructure that we have right across the country. And as usual, the communities that get hit the worst are underserved, populations of color, just all of this. I know you guys know, but I think we have something here on this panel, and we should really talk offline about things we can do, because this whole concept of a little medical school, that's brilliant, right? Now, when we talk about workforce shortages, after this pandemic, it's going to be twice as bad. So many people have died. So many people are going to leave the profession. So many people have retired because of this. So this is a really critical time right now, I think, to be a doctor and to be in a position where we could actually contribute. I think collectively, and as I think about, what Women in White Coats is doing, I think it's phenomenal. I think as women, we really should talk about maybe some things we can do as a project or something out of this, because I would love, all of you are really inspiring. And this pandemic has, I think, moved so many of us to really question, what am I doing in healthcare and what could I do better? Because this is beyond just one doc and one hospital, right? So it's so massive. So sorry to be on my soapbox, but I just wanted to throw it out there.
I think that it's panels like this, it's opportunities like this conference that allow us to connect and network and think about how to move forward with the things that we're struggling. So I think that you're absolutely right, Dr. Nair. This is a great opportunity for us to generate some momentum, to do something positive, to respond to this pandemic. I'm mindful of time because we've got about 15 minutes left. And so I want to ask each of you to share some advice for folks who are listening, who might be interested in doing things outside the box, but maybe are fearful or anxious about taking that next step. So why don't we start with Dr. Robbins?
Sure. So that is, I love that. So to bring it kind of even back to women in white coats. So the whole thing, good morning. The whole thing was with this is that it all began with me having quiet time with myself to come up with a book project. And then Arshan and I came up with Women in White Coats. So sometimes it's just a little small idea that you don't necessarily think would be something other people would want. And then you get surprised when you have conferences, when you have panels like this, how much that need is there. So if there's something that's in your heart that you want to do, just do it. You know, life is too short. We've seen even with the pandemic, if there's something you want to do, just do it now. It doesn't have to be perfect. God knows, even with everything that we do with Women in White Coats, when I see patients, it's not perfect, but there's some value that other people can find in it, that other people need. So my encouragement to you is get off your butt and do it. If you need help, we can do it as a group, but our goal is to have you burn bright. And so our hope is that this will be the light for you actually to go out and do what you really want to do, that will then pour back into you.
Thank you so much. It's almost like a Nike ad. Just do it.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Dr. Nair, tell us what you think.
So it's not going to be that different from Dr. Robbins. I think that I'm going to tailor it to women and physicians. So first of all, I'm going to plug Dr. Brown's book because she did not do a good job of doing it. So Emergency, the what, why, and how to go to an ER visit. This chat is long, I can't find it now. But the book is called Emergency by Dr. Kimberly Brown. So number one, support each other, right? So I say that and I do that, right? If you are struggling with making this move, I think surround yourself with people who've made the move. Like I mentioned kind of earlier, I didn't use the word mentor, but that's what I mean. So mentors, pay it forward. I think that I like to believe that leaders take people with them, right? So if you find yourself a leader or a mentor, go with them. Even if you don't know, and this is the hardest part, I think, for physicians, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Life is messy. Medicine is messy. I mean, look at this pandemic. Again, this is such a humbling time. So do not wait for perfection. You will never make a move. I think so many of us are perfectionists. And I would say that my journey did not have to take as long as it did because I was always striving for perfection. And then I finally got to a point where someone actually said this to me. They said, you got to bloody your nose. You got to get in the fight and you're going to get hurt and knocked down. And to be the champion, you don't go out of the gate being a champion, right? You got to go and screw up, and for those of us that are moms, I mean, this is what I tell my daughter, just do it, just try, right? The other thing I would say is don't be understated. Just don't. You got to have the confidence to take the risk. And, that in itself is bold, right? You may not get it right. I don't think anyone here would say that they're at the end of their journey or that they've reached perfection and that there is no roadmap. My God, my parents are South Asian parents. Archana, I know you feel me right now. My parents could not be more disappointed with me. They were always like, when are you going to cut the crap, come home and take over the practice? Like, what is it that you do? I was the CMIO for AT&T, like in my early 30s, and my dad literally called me. It was kind of a big press announcement. It was like the youngest, blah, blah, blah. It was this big deal. My dad called me and said, let me understand something. we paid for medical school so that you could work for the phone company. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what is this? He's like, I'm so embarrassed. So it's just, so I just mean to say, and you'll get all kinds of opinions, families and otherwise, but you got to do what you love. And I think you go all in. I'm an all in or all out person. I don't like to do things halfway, but I think you just go for it. You just go for it. And we're all here to help you as well on the journey. I think the Women in White Coats concept is beautiful. Hats off to Amber and Archana for starting this, but I think we as a community should also lift each other and help you. So I'm happy to be a mentor to anyone who's looking for someone. And I really mean it. I believe in paying it forward. And I think we should all be thinking of how we can help each other just generally.
I love that. And I think piggybacking off of what Dr. Nayar said is you need a combination of guides. You need mentors. You also need coaches, and you need sponsors, because each of those three things does very different things for your career. A mentor is someone with whom you're going to have a close personal relationship. A coach is someone who takes a mirror and points it back at you and reminds you what you already know about the steps to take. And then a sponsor creates opportunities for you. They advocate for you and they put you up on a pedestal and they give you opportunities. So having those, Kelly wants me to repeat it. Okay, so you need a mentor, you need a sponsor, and you need coach. Okay, and the other thing is there's a lot of comments going on in the side panel about not having enough mentors in medicine. I have to tell you, one of my best mentors is not a physician. One of my best mentors is actually, she's got a PhD in education and she does like business consulting. She's been more impactful for my career than any of my other mentors. But as I said, the mentor is the one with whom you have a personal, close relationship. The sponsor creates opportunities for you and basically puts their neck out for you. And then your coach just reflects back to you what you already know about yourself. All right, so let's hear from Dr. Mason next.
You know, I'm so glad you said that about a mentor. I mean, actually, you're right. Some of my best mentors have been, you know, outside of medicine and taking the lessons that they have and bring it to what you're doing. You know, it really does give you a very different perspective. The one thing I would say is, you know, be brave. And I also think it's very important to write out a timeline for yourself. So I just had my 25th medical school reunion. And I kind of, every year I kind of take this in 5-year blocks where it's like, where do I want to be at 30 years? Where do I, you know, where did I want to be at 10 years? And I think sometimes you write these things down and they seem at the time, they look a little crazy, you know, like, oh, I can't do that. But I think when you get it, it's so important because we are so, all of us are so busy and we've got, you know, family obligations, we have our work obligations, and sometimes we forget about ourselves and what we want our goals to be. So write it down and look at it and then keep coming back to it. And sometimes you actually are surprised how much you can achieve. And I mean, the best part is when you get to 2 years out and you're like, oh my gosh, I already got to where I wanted to be. Now I can add some more things in. But yeah, paper, I think pen and paper, I'm old fashioned, but when you write it down, you can really commit to it. And I can't wait to see the journal that you're sending out, because I bet there's a place to put those goals in there.
All right, Dr. Brown, bring it home. What advice do you have for folks?
Well, I think I was going to say that was like the perfect sermon for those of us who are Christian. It was like a 3-point, you know, mentor, sponsor, coach. I was like, well, I feel delivered after that. Hallelujah. I would say this is something I have learned over the last few years, which is do it scared. It doesn't matter how you feel, just do it even in the midst of fear. And sometimes you can be so paralyzed with fear and who am I to write a book? And I just got out of residency like 5 minutes ago. Who am I to be on TV and speaking as an authority figure when I just started practicing independently a few months ago? So those are all thoughts that are still going on in your head, but what you have to do is learn how to push past them. And I think having a mentor and having a coach to do that is really, really helpful. But more specifically, you just have to keep doing it, no matter if you're scared, no matter how you feel or what's going on, because there's a reason why the idea has been placed inside of you. You have to do whatever you're doing out of the box because somebody needs what you're about to offer into the world. So that is one thing that I really learned how to implement in my life, is just pushing past fear and uncertainty and well, how is this all gonna work and da da da. Well, you know, you just have to start taking the first step and the second step and the third step. And if there's a roadblock, there's a lot of things that you can ask someone, you can Google it, you can kind of figure it out along the way, and then all of a sudden you'll have a finished product about, you know, what you're trying to do. So no matter what though, if you're gonna let fear paralyze you, you won't ever get to that goal. So again, just learning how to push past fear and doing it scared is the biggest thing that I recommend someone learn how to do.
I love it. I love it. Thank you all so much for your words of wisdom. And I think what I would add to that last comment about fear, when you get to the edge of discomfort, that is where growth happens. You cannot grow, you cannot change, you cannot develop professionally and personally unless you're uncomfortable. If you're perfectly comfortable, there's nothing going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. So thank you all so very much. And there's a ton of great conversations going on in the chat window. I think it would be probably great for us to collate these comments because I wasn't able to get to everybody's questions. But I thank you so very much for sharing this time with us. And I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you so much, Kat. That was great. Thank you, everyone. That was a great panel. And just to direct you to what's coming next, we have Shane, who is a financial planner. He'll be talking to you about finances. And then right after that, we'll have another panel discussion on leadership and seeking promotion. And so what I would want you to do for both of those, when you go to the actual portal for the conference, press the down arrow and then just click the button if you do not see the video pop up. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
So
everyone.
nice meeting you guys. Thank you
Great
so
to
much,
meet you all.